What's up, fam? So today we're gonna talk about the Batman. I love the Batman. I thought it was really good, right? But at the same time, I have a lot of reservations. So at the time, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've been trying to decide what's the problem with this film. And I came up with two ideas, two conflicting ideas that seem to be the main center of this entire problem. It's like, why is this film that is so good, right? At the same time, feels like it's almost not correct, or some stuff was almost sometimes it felt boring. Some stuff didn't feel like there was depth to it. And what's going on in there? And what I figure is like this film has two things, right? It can be very original at times, and its ideas are about that originality, right? When they were being composed, one of the center cores of the Batman was that it was meant to be original. The setting was supposed to be original. This Batman had to feel, had to have that feeling that it's something new, something younger, so you could have like a whole playground to work with. The look of Gotham itself had to have something that was live and beautiful, right? So there was a lot of ideas and a lot of complexities that they wanted to have. Same thing with the storytelling. The crime storytelling was supposed to be deep, complex. There has to be a lot of twists and turns, where still keeping it very tight and personal, giving you something fresh from Batman, right? Something that you haven't seen before. This sort of something very gritty in itself. Something is like the gutters of Gotham City. But at the same time, with all that newness, you also ended up with something that at the same time was extremely, sometimes almost derivative, right? Something that felt repeated, something that you have seen times over and over. And I think that was a big problem when it came to the Batman. Like, it really wants to be something original, and it does, but sometimes, or not even sometimes, I think a lot of the times, it does things that are so unoriginal, so uninteresting, that it reduces the quality of the work around it. And I think that was one of the biggest problems that I had, that the film suffers from. Like, everything looks really good aesthetically. You kind of get the vibes, right? The vibes are really there, and they're very strong. But then once you get down to it, it feels like you have seen so many parts of the story, or so many iterations that have callbacks to previous films, that it feels like you're really taking away from something of the film. And this is something that the movie itself should not be going towards, right? Like, when you have something like this, the level of design for the Batman, something that really has a lot of stuff that you can work with that's new, you shouldn't have been doing stuff that was either that it was unnecessary, that felt repeated, right? Sometimes you do get the sense that this movie copied a lot of The Dark Knight, and sometimes there were some scenes that were just not some scenes, right? Some entire story elements that were unnecessary. I think the storytelling and the script writing were also very weak. And those things, like, when you look at the things that are that are bad on the film, they really hurt the film in general. On comparison of everything else that functions really well. An example of all this stuff, for example, let's look at the beginning, right? When the movie first begins, right, you're starting to get they're starting to set up the environment on the ambience of the film. And the thing is, like, even the first couple of scenes, it feels like, why would you take this turn into something like we have felt before, right? Like, you have they're looking down into the binoculars, and they're looking down at this scene of playfulness, and at the same time, Ave Maria is playing in the background, right? In this kind of sense, this dichotomy of good and evil, or like something of terror or menace overlooking a fear, right? Something that's encapsulating something that should be beautiful, right? It's something so on the nose at times that it kind of wakes you up from the film. And the thing is that the scene is beautiful, right? The architecture of it is beautiful. The cinematography is beautiful. The sound quality is beautiful. The imaging is beautiful. The coloring is beautiful. All that is really well done. But then the scene itself, it feels almost like, all right, that's not, we have seen this idea played out before. And I think this shows some of the biggest problem with this film is just the script writing. It really got in the way, I think, in the storytelling. It's just not a strong script, I think. I think the script comes into life because a lot of the pieces that are around it, and a lot of the details that show up, right? Like Robert Pattinson as Batman, for example. Like, the beginning scene is feels repetitive, right? In storytelling, almost like things that you've seen before. But then you have Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson brings all this dialogue to those scenes, right? The beginning scenes, the storytelling element. he himself brings this sort of venom of vengeance into the tale. He legitimately elevates a scene that feels so obvious in his interpretation, and then he brings it forward into something new and interesting, right? That really resonates with the rest of everything that's working. The idea of a vigilante in a city that's in decay. We have seen that over and over, especially how it's told. And in this particular angle, right, the beginnings, you're getting a message that you have seen before, so you get kind of bored of it. Like you know this, but you kind of don't care because then Robert Patterson is there. You can see his eyes, the coloring, the cinematography as he's riding down the street in a motorcycle, the tone of his voice, the greediness of it, the look of Gotham, all that is just wonderful. So this is again that this movie is really well constructed, but the parts that don't work out is like it's just stuff that truthfully is like it's just repetitions of something from the past that you shouldn't have done. Like it's not that you can have elements that you have seen before in film. It's just that when you are going to have them, right, make sure that there's not so many of them. And I think in this film, you kind of feel there's a lot of little styles that you have seen or have played themselves out before. Another thing that you do have to like, I think it played a very big part in this film of why some pieces weren't working out together. Like I said, it was the script and the story. It was that there was a lot of pieces that just weren't that interesting, and there was a lot of it. If I'm honest, I think Catwoman, Selena Kyle was just something that should never have been on this film to begin with. It provided some things that were kind of pretty to look at in an essence, things like the club scenes or the interactions between Batman himself, right, and Catwoman. They felt like there was something there, right, like a little added the romance feeling to it and made it very personal. But at the same time, the story just not interesting. There's nothing about it. Just like you kind of want to find out more about it as a crime. It's something that actually drags down the film because think about it like this, right? You have something new and interesting with this Batman. You want to see more of him. You want to see truthfully as much as possible of this Batman as you can. And what the film does is starts distracting you with this entire plot about Catwoman and the murder that happened, the Falcons, and all that just feels like a sort of crime plot, right? You're not really interested or invested into it because it's sort of something that you kind of feel like you understand where it's going, or you kind of it doesn't have a sharp edge. It's not that deep. It's not that interesting, right? It's not something that you focus your vision into. And because of that, it almost distracts from everything else, right? You want to see the Batman that's the vigilante, everything that you kind of have that Robert Patterson has shown you, right? Because that's where the coolness and interesting is. And I think like you really took away a lot of minutes from him for characters and ideas that are just not that interesting. Like think about Robert Patterson's Batman, right? Like the newness of his character of being something young, something that is Batman, but itself not Batman, right? Something that has an idea of vengeance, almost that eventually becomes redempting at the end of the movie. That's interesting, right? The way he moves too. You have to admire the ways that this Batman moves. The way this Batman moves I think, is one of the best things they did in this film because it made him something more different and more alive, more filled with vitality in the way that he fights. Right, it's more brutal too. It's something fast, vicious, and it brings out that youthfulness that you wanted to see. Because what this movie, right? This movie is supposed to be something that takes advantage of those younger years of Batman. So showing him in this action, showing him in these interactions that are rapid, aggressive, and interesting, that's what you want to see, right? You want to see this Batman take into effect the idea of the world that was presented to him, that is supposed to be something fresh, right? But instead, you get sent off into another angle where it's like you're talking about this crime plots and things that are not necessarily interesting and take away from the idea that was supposed to be really, really cool. There's also like Matt Reeves, right? When they were making this movie, one of the ideas was that they were trying to make something better than the Dark Knight, right? Obviously, that did not happen because the film just doesn't have the level of quality. The Dark Knight is just something too special and too grand, right? It's a very strong film, one of the best films ever made. To be honest, it's like that's the level of quality that you're expecting of it. But that's not to say the Batman is bad or in any sense. It's like it's still an exception of film for being the first one. And in comparison to Batman Begins, I think the Batman is a lot better than Batman Begins by far more. Like the ideas are more concentrated, everything is sharp. A lot of things don't work out right, which is, that's the part that we're discussing. But in theory, it's just a better film, I would think. Like even the script and everything, it just resonates deeper because it's richer. I think there's just so much richness to this film that you can look at it again over and over and over. And even with its flaws, you still kind of love the Batman, right? Um, Another big problem that I have was the Riddler in this movie. I think the Riddler is like it's something. The idea was that they were using when they were creating the Riddler. They were like, okay, if we're gonna bring the Riddler out into this modern world, this modern realistic crime-filled noir world, what would his interpretation be? And they basically used the idea of the Zodiac killer, right, to leave clues and things like that, because that's what the Riddler would kind of be, right, in the real world. If he was a criminal or a high-level killer, it would be something to this sense, right? And then they added a plot about the rich people in Gotham. And the thing is that idea, right, of almost like having the Zodiac killer be the Riddler, it's not fun. It's not fun. It's not interesting. It's just not, even the Riddlers and things that the jokes that are going about it, almost something like Saw. It just doesn't grab you, right? Because the riddles are not something fun, right? It's not like something like the Joker. You don't see it's his personality that much, and when you do see it, it feels almost caricaturish, right? Something that understands what he's supposed to be, something that understands they're supposed to be like the Zodiac killer. He's trying to send you a message, something sending a message to Batman, but there's never, I understand, right, that the film doesn't want to have the Riddler and Batman, having this face-offs, so they only meet like once at the end, and before that is just sort of like this psychological, mental game between them or something parallel to that, but it's just not interesting, right? It's not a force that you see very present as much as another crime story in comparison to the other crime story that they had. So there's like two of them at play, and that you don't care at all for either of them, right? When you go to the storytelling of Catwoman and Falcone, that's not that interesting. Then you go back down and you reverberate down to the story of the Riddler, and you're like, this is not interesting either, right? You want to see Batman being Batman. Some of the best stuff is actually the stuff with the Penguin, because again, it's pure originality, right? It just, when you look at Colin Farrell, the way he speaks, the way the Penguin moves, you love him. You see an interpretation that you have not seen before. You see an idea that takes the value of the world of Gotham, makes it real, and it helps everybody. And it's that newness that's being interpreted from the outside world to the inside world to the cinematography, and then you have this beautiful scene with the Batmobile, right, and the Penguin running away, racing away as the new Batmobile chases him in this very gothic looking car. It's beautiful, right? It's beautiful. The whole scene, the raindrops dropping, the wheels on the car, the flames. Sometimes I think it went a little bit overboard, but then I still think it's still a good scene, seeing Batman in action like this. It was good. I think the chaos with the cars may have been a bit too much, right? Because it almost took itself out into an area that you kind of don't want to be at when you have so much that's supposed to be based upon realism and reality. Did a lot of people die in that highway, possibly, right? So that's kind of a problem. But it still is like, it's a movie cinema, so it works out pretty well. And the whole scene is very well constructed. It feels new. It works with the characters. Everything played out pretty well there. But then you look at the stuff with the Riddler, and it's like, sometimes it feels like you have seen this stuff before. Even its final confrontation, right? You have something that's basically one-to-one with the Joker, and that confrontation that it had in the jail between the Dark Knight and the Joker, right? Something so tense when they finally meet and they're in this conflict, and there's a lot of things at play. Is that level of tension, right? And it feels so good. It's just such a great scene. He starts punching the Joker. In this scene, you have the Riddler with the Batman, but everything feels like a forced creation of tension, and the emotions that they have between each other seems almost childish at times. it's like he's trying to, he tries to poke fun at the Riddler, but it doesn't feel like something that should be taken seriously, to be honest. And then at one point, the Riddler starts singing Ave Maria, and it feels like, that whole point it's again, it's supposed to be something that's deeper, something that's more elegant, but it's really not. It doesn't come off as that. And it's like the scene just tried to be something that it wasn't. And I do love that when you make artistic decisions, right? When you make jumps into things that you want to try, like having the Riddler at the end with Batman. That's kind of cool and interesting. They kind of capture him in the coffee shop. I was okay with this, right? But then takes away a lot from the idea of everything that happened before, like with Catwoman, Falcone, and that story. That's not that interesting, to be honest. But yeah, like at least this part kind of stood out, which again I think is the script and the script and the storytelling. In the script, right, the way that people speak in this movie, it doesn't have that level of like in the Dark Knight, right? In here, everything feels like you have heard how they speak before. At one point, like Batman's talking to Alfred, right, Pennyworth, and he tells him it's like you're not my father. Is that sort of high school angst? It's not like you can have that, but at the same time, it's like you have seen that before, so it's not that interesting. But then you see, it's like once they did so much stuff that's repetitive, those things that didn't work out. But then look at the stuff that was supposed to be new and original, right? And that's because of you're finally working with what you were with the idea that you were supposed to have. When they're with Gordon inside the police station, you see this Batman, right? He's just full of vengeance and anger in his eyes, and he's talking with the rest of the cops. He punches one of them, everybody's gonna go against him. And in that moment, you'd really feel what it's supposed to be, right? Which is the essence that this Batman is younger, but he's also fragile. This Batman seems like, he will struggle more with the situations than somebody like that's been at the game for like 20 years, right? Then let's say Ben Affleck's Batman. In here, it feels very different. So that's where you take advantage to provide some of the most curious and interesting ideas that you can to the environment. After he punches the cop, you see him running down the hall, and you see his face, and it's like, he's full of adrenaline. You know that, if they catch him, they're going to mess him up. Because you do sense that this Batman cannot accomplish everything. And that's the best part about it. That's what you'd like to have that's why they wanted to have somebody that was younger for this Batman. Because you want that interpretation of failure that could happen instead of something almost godlike when it's like Ben Affleck's Batman or The Dark Knight, right? Or even the other Batmans, right? Having a Batman that struggles is kind of interesting. He gets to the top of the tower after he escapes the cops from the prison, and then he jumps off in a squirrel suit, in a flight suit, right? And he's gliding through Gotham, and he doesn't have his wings, so he's still young at this. When he lands, he gets hurt. So all that stuff is interesting, and I would love to have seen more of that and more of Batman than stuff that was, to me, felt not necessary, and that bloated the film and made it. Some people call this film boring, right? Like some people say that it felt like at parts it was boring, and I think it is that itself. It is the parts of the storytelling where it's the crime that feel very I don't care about it because it wasn't interesting. It's just like a crime drama going from plot to plot, and in between there's nothing emotionally strong about that plot in itself. And ultimately, right, we get to the finale, the climax. The climax of the film I love. Like I watch over and over because it has a lot of the pieces that worked out, and it's a lot of what I wanted to see from Batman. Not that I want this level of action all the time, obviously, because this movie, I love the sense that it's taking itself more seriously, very seriously, and that gives me, if you take yourself very seriously, you're able to do stuff that's more mature and maybe dig deeper into stuff that will be personal. It's not those, you're not dealing with chaos and order like you were in The Dark Knight, but in here you can make things personal and still elevate that. And in the final scene, right, you have Batman coming down with the glass against the army of the Riddlers. All that is just so well done, and the action sequence, the movement. Like I said, one of the best things about this Batman is how it moves because Robert Pattinson is like younger, so you have that kind of movement as he's fighting. It's not 100% effective sometimes, but either way, he still works with that voracious agility as he's moving along the rafters, right? He's moving around the pieces of metal, fighting the Riddlers. He's dodging bullets. He's moving fast. He's punching strong, like the way he dodges bullets. All that is, it's cool. And the movement of it, like I cannot stress so much. Like that is the best part of this Batman. He flows so well, and it makes the story believable, and it elevates everything. I think if this Batman were functioned differently, it would have been wrong. But the way that they really focus on that aspect of him, the way that he punches, it's really good, right? When he's hanging from something, you feel that something fragile that he's about to break, but then he picks himself up and starts fighting again. The way he deals with stuff is almost amateurish, but at the same time he gets it done. Absolutely a 10 out of 10 scene. And then it ends up with something where it's like Batman, his vengeance has become something. It's like almost like something redemptive at the end, and he starts looking at the outside world more clearly, and almost like a symbol of hope. It feels a bit too outside Batman, which is supposed to be something dark and broody, and it becomes something almost like Superman, which is like hope. But I still think it functions. I think the part I didn't like was like when they were riding off into the sunset with Catwoman. That did not play it out for me, to be honest. Like I thought it felt a bit corny. Dude, like I said, I don't think Catwoman should have been in this film. Maybe the next one would have been nicer, but I guess too, right? Like it's just, it added stuff that was unnecessary to me. And this is how I feel about the film, just in general. Ultimately, guys, it's like it's still a great film because I keep watching it, trying to understand it, and looking at it from different angles. But do I see the problems? I think just the script and stuff. What I see is that when they do make the sequel with the Batman Part 2, and I just heard Oscar Isaac was going to be in the movie. Whatever they do with Part 2, it's like I feel like you're gonna have the Dark Knight hype levels of like intrigue. People are gonna be kind of they've been waiting for long for the sequel, and this is the sort of film that right now society kind of needs, because a lot of projects are either flops, or there's nothing that you can truthfully say that stands out that you want to see, right? Besides a few projects, Avatar, the Super Mario Brother movies, things that are going to be good and you want to watch the sequel. This is one of them, dude. The Batman Part 2, I think, is going to resonate heavy when it drops, and I feel like they have looked at this film, right? The Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson. They were like, okay, this is where we make mistakes. This is how we feel about it. Let's fix it for the next one. I think that 100% is what you're gonna get. So the next project, I 100% is gonna be incredible, and I'm just very hyped about it. That's all for today, fam. GG's.